strong.
Beautiful. Or we might progress forward into maybe a bit more of a general sort of discussion as to, I guess, the pre-season coming up, Jacob, for a lot of people. Given COVID, we've basically had a 2-year hiatus, I'd say, from regular, programming, conditioning, match play, all that good stuff. And so we, all of us here, Damo and Sean, we've discussed this ourselves off air about how potentially that could be a big issue for semi-professional clubs. And I know you've dealt with this level a lot. What sort of problems do you see, I guess, coming into 2022 and potentially a COVID-free year, and how we can address some of these problems now?
Yeah, most of the issues I see actually aren't gym related. I think with the gym stuff, particularly your strength-based stuff, it's non-elastic. It's not high speed mostly. So if you just, your first few sessions back, be really conservative. So if you're normally lifting 150 kilos and you think, oh, maybe I'll just do 120. It's like, no, do less. Maybe 100. No, do less. We're talking, 40, 50, 60 kilos for those first few sessions. And then you can come back quite quickly after that in the gym. So if your first week back squatting is only 40 kilos, don't feel like it's going to take you another 5 years to get back to 150 kilos. It's going to go 40, 60, 80, 100, 3 or 4 workouts in a row, bang, bang, bang. So you're going to get that back quite quickly. But taking your time and getting a few of those easy sessions under your belt will help you also simultaneously get your running under your belt in the right way. And I see a lot more of the risk, like your opinions, I think this is my thoughts anyway, is I see a lot more of the risk in the running sector, where athletes go, cool, club training, let's go out, let's go kick for goal for 50 minutes, let's go do running, kicking drills, let's go do match play for an hour. 2 hours later, it's like, back with the team, we're back at it, awesome. Once a week for about a month, and then you're going to hammies, stressies, tendons, all that sort of stuff is going to be done, because the intensity we get when we train as a team is just so much higher than the intensity we get when we train our own. I don't care who you ask, you train harder in a team or in a club group environment. I go out and I do my 400s, and they're tough and whatever. But if I go run 400s with a mate who's a little bit quicker than me, or who I'd like to show that I'm a little bit quicker than, that's a whole new level. That's a whole new level of intensity. And so the RPE scale just changes. So if you're calling everything on your own in RPE 9, and all of a sudden you're running 5 seconds faster on all your 400s, and it's still in an RPE 9, well, you were only at a 7 before. And that extra intensity, I think, is where a lot of the risk is. The extra intensity and the extra volume with the running.
Mate, would you say that's akin to running a half marathon off no training? That sort of stuff?
I would say that is a textbook example. That is a massive violation of the acute to chronic workload ratio. You boys are in a hole right now.
I think it's more of a case of do as I say, not as I do with these boys. But
it was for a good cause. That's the reason behind it.
Yeah, and sometimes we get so obsessed with that. Again, sometimes we get so obsessed with that numbers, and it's like sometimes you want to set yourself a challenge. I guess you guys aren't getting drafted anytime soon to the AFL, so Collingwood or Carlton are going to be disappointed when you sign your contract. So it's not too stressful. But
maybe child draft for these blokes, I reckon. But
one thing I would do for these guys though is I would now be treating the next 3 weeks like you've got a red flag on everything you do. So you have primed your body for you haven't started the stressor yet, but you have primed your body to get a stressor. If you were to continue on running a half marathon every fortnight for the next few weeks. So I just dial back a few weeks and then do a nice smart reload after you've recovered.
I think that's the problem and the trouble sometimes is when coming back from, I guess, to start any preseason, let alone a COVID interrupted season, is that you come out firing and ready to go, but the problems that you're going to face, they're not going to show up straight away. And so you think you might be okay, but then you get 3, 4, 8 weeks down the track, and that's when they start to pop up, and you think, shit, maybe we've gone a bit too hard here.
Often you don't connect that injury back to when it happened too. So because there's 8 weeks gap between your first 2 weeks of hard training or your half marathon, and then the injury showing up, you go, it must have been that night out that I wore those tight shoes. That's what's caused my feet to hurt a lot. Like, no, you set this up a month ago. The shoes had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
You set this up a month ago, and it's only now starting to show up because your body's adaptation cycles are behind our memories. Like it's a little slower than our ability to remember what training we've done.
Yeah. I think you made a great point before as well about the intensity of things. Like I know, having done some virtual pre-seasons with footy clubs the past couple of years, every man and his dog's trying to run 10Ks out on the pavement and the intensity is quite low. And then when you get back to training and we do a couple of, short intervals and everyone's cooked. So I think it's a lot of people at home are going for this volume rather than the intensity. And that's the big thing. And then coming back as well, like you said earlier about the hammies and quads, just kicking the footy, like being in lockdown, a lot of people have been by themselves or only with another person. So if you go for a kick for, 20 minutes, you might kick the ball, 50 times, but you get back to training and you've got 100 kicks,
on the run as well.
Yeah,
so
on the
run with intensity. Yep.
50 handballs, then you got some tackles and stuff like that, and you've gone from 0 to 100 so quickly. So I think an important thing would be sort of like a return to kicking program or something like that, which I've seen implemented, because so many people are going to just go from 0 to 100 so quickly, and that's where it starts. And like you said, 4 weeks down the track, you go, "Oh, I've got a hamstring strain."
Yeah, and that sets up other things too. So you go from barely any casual kicking to high intensity on the run kicking. All of a sudden, if you're a right footer, your right rec fem is going to be way tighter, and that's going to pull on your pelvis, and that's going to have effects on your lower back, which is going to trickle on into your hamstrings or into your thoracic or your neural tension. Like there's going to be all these other flow-on things that you just won't connect back to. That day you and a few mates went down to the field and dropped a whole bunch of barrels on from 50, and we're doing these kicking drills on the run and doing a whole bunch of pickups off the ground, like getting down to that slouch position to do pickups. All this stuff adds up, and we're just talking about, this is just specific to footy. Like if you start talking about basketball and volleyball with rebounding load, shooting load, scrimmage stuff, like all these different things are a factor. So it doesn't mean you have to go and measure every single layup you do or every single handball. It's just go, okay, what I would do is I would just go, I'm way less conditioned than I realize. Like, I think I'm unfit, add another 50% of unfitness onto that, the lack of conditioning onto that lack of conditioning, and go, okay, what would that athlete do? They'd go and they'd kick for 20 minutes, stationary, under 30 meters, maybe off a step or two. That's it. And then they'd call it a day. They'd go do some running, and then that's it. They're done. They wouldn't go for hours just because the weather's nice and you finally got your freedom. Be a little smarter at this stuff. Do handball, stationary handball drills. I reckon you could do that for 4 hours and not have any problems. It's when you start doing high intensity sprints, change direction, tackling stuff, that's when the trouble comes.
Mate, there's an issue I see coming up is when people they go back and do a test first up. So that might be if you want to talk footy or rugby league or whatever it might be, rugby union, any sort of outdoor sport, and they do a yo-yo or a beat test or a 30-15, whatever it might be. That to me rings a bit of an alarm bells early, particularly if you've done nothing beforehand, because obviously that's a maximal test and maximal exertion and all the potentially bad things that happen along those lines. Is there anything that you recommend for people to do before that stage, a couple of weeks before, and then I guess directly after? Because things that happen before that, it's going to hopefully help the test itself.
Yeah, are we talking about for the coach to make sure their athletes don't get hurt, or for the athletes that
I reckon
so they do well on the test?
Yeah, because the coach will run the test no matter what, because they love testing and they love enforcing some power and authority. But for the athlete, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. So the test is happening. It's on day 1 or day 2 of training. No matter what, you just got to be ready. I wouldn't worry too much about a taper, like in the week or so before the session. What I'd make sure is I'm getting a good blend of running. So I'm getting some long stuff, some interval stuff, and some speed stuff. So you're ready for, and what I'd be doing as well is if you're doing like a yo-yo type test with change of direction, I'd be doing some change of direction. It's so easy to go run, hard 400s, which are indeed tough and you run them hard, but because it's all just a gentle bend, you don't get any of that hard cutting stuff. Yeah. And so if you're not very good at cutting, that is a skill and it has its own energetic demand. So I would be practicing your cutting work as well, doing some, on the cricket pitch, doing some 20 repeats back and forth at speed for sprint work and also for conditioning. Like I'd do 8 of them back to back and get used to doing that into fatigue. Maybe not do 8 on your first session, but maybe just start with 4, maybe 6, maybe get a little faster and then add them up, because that is going to be a factor as well. So I'd be practicing parts of the test. I'd be breaking down whatever test you expect to be doing and doing elements of it and be practicing that as a skill and also to get your body ready for that stress.